a Dear Media original podcast.
Today's episode is brought to us by Seed. And the thing about it is gut health and probiotics and the microbiome are absolutely buzzing in conversations and headlines and hashtags. And there are discoveries in the microbiome research that are absolutely transforming medicine and hygiene and diet. And honestly, with all of this amazing information, there's also a ton of misinformation, and that can feel really confusing and overwhelming. That's why I love Seed so much. I think it's so important to be able to trust the science and integrity of a company. And when it comes to really learning about and maintaining a really healthy microbiome, Seed is a company that I really trust. I have to tell you, I have been taking this for a while, and there was a moment at one point where I kind of lapsed and went to a different probiotic, and I actually did feel a difference. I'm not going to lie. For me, I like to take this as the very last thing before I go to sleep. It makes me feel really good before I go to sleep to know that I'm doing something to take really good care of myself and my biome. Seed's DS01 Daily Symbiotic is a plant-based prebiotic and probiotic with 24 strains that have been clinically or scientifically studied for its benefits. If you haven't taken probiotics before and haven't really felt a difference, it's likely because the capsule isn't designed to survive in your stomach acid with the bile salts and digestive enzymes. Seed is different. Get the real deal in a symbiotic, one that's backed by clinical trials and scientific data. Visit seed.com/instincts and use the code instincts to redeem 30% off your first month of Seed's DS01 Daily Symbiotic. That's seed.com/instincts and use the code instincts. Hi, welcome to Good Instincts. I'm Shira Barlow, but you may know me as the food therapist. Join me every Monday through Friday for bite-sized episodes designed to help you close the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go. This should feel good, like really good. And it will, I promise. Today is an Ask Shira, and I love doing these because you guys just submit them on Instagram and then I get to be helpful. So that's why I do this whole thing, and it makes me really, really happy to do it. So let's jump in. The first one is, I'm early in pregnancy, pre-cute bump. I feel guilty for being so annoyed that I just look bigger and softer. This is so important and relatable. So here's the thing. I think that it is really important, first and foremost, to admit that that is really hard. Even if you are so excited and it's obviously a blessing and this is going to be great. But I think the reality is like, it is okay to be bummed and to be scared and to be upset. It's a huge loss of control. And I agree. I think that like later on when it's really obvious that you're pregnant, then that's a whole different thing and you can dress for your bump and all of that. But in the first trimester, probably before maybe you're telling everyone, you just don't feel great. And I actually had this recently with a client of mine. She is probably like 6 weeks pregnant and she's about to go on a business trip. And she's kind of like a high-powered lawyer and she really likes dressing up and like her cute little like skirts and suits and all the things. And she felt just kind of like blah. And she felt like if she went there and she was looking kind of in this way, it would feel like she just didn't feel herself. So what I told her is the same thing I will tell you, which is, I think it's really important to own the fact that like it is totally healthy and okay to be like bummed about that. To be like, this is hard. I'm having a hard time with this. Number one, it doesn't mean that you're not grateful. Doesn't mean that you're not going to love your baby, but it just means that in this moment right now, this is hard. And I think that that's really important. And then the other thing, I had never been like a shapewear person. I didn't really understand it. But like, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago, I invested in a Skims. I love Kim, by the way. I invested in a Skims. You can get whatever. There's all different brands, but I do think that like the Skims are like extra good. I got to tell you, I understand. I understand what it means to put that on and then put on like a skirt or a pant or a dress or something like that and just feel a certain way if that's your thing. So if it were me and I was in the very early stages where I just kind of like felt a little bigger and softer and I wanted to feel a little more pulled in. I think that that would be a really good idea. And I know, for instance, a lot of the sites, like I do know for sure that Skims has like specific maternity shapewear. But obviously, if you felt uncomfortable or you felt like you were curious about how tight is too tight, I would definitely talk to your doctor about it. But I don't know, maybe it could help. And then the other thing is, depending on your budget and what you're trying to do, I really do think that later on, investing in some like key pieces for your pregnancy that you feel really good about. I say this out of love and care because I did this to a certain extent, but not for my third trimester. I was just so like stubborn about it. And then I feel like I could have spent that time feeling like more pulled together than I did. And I feel like it was a mistake I made that I would do differently if I were you. So those are my takes. The next is, this may sound ridiculous, but how do I know if I'm actually full? This is also so relatable because the thing is, the whole thing that we've been telling so many people for so long is eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. And that is great advice. But what if you're not actually sure? And I think for a lot of people who have maybe been like perma dieters, for example, someone who like has actively told their body, like, let's not be hungry right now, has gotten far away from that. And like, we just get far away from it when we're distracted and tired and busy. So I think that that's just like really, really realistic and important. And I'm glad that you brought it up. So I think the thing is that we are also all socialized as kids to like finish our plates and don't be rude, like finish up and like we don't want to waste food and all that. The first things first, I think part of that is like dropping that culture of being like the whole plate doesn't have to get finished. Really, really having it be more on focusing on yourself and maybe questioning kind of like the things that may have led us here, I think could be very important. But to get back to the main issue, I think what's really helpful, and I talk to clients about this all the time, is to, in a really non-judgmental way, think back to a time when you were overstuffed, where you like overdid it, and like what that feels like. And it doesn't feel great. Like to me, it feels like kind of like busting out of your pants or your clothes or like kind of like an overstuffed suitcase. Obviously, that doesn't feel good, but we also don't want to be like super hungry. And so I think what helps is trying to check in with yourself in 25% increments. So like eating a little bit, be like, what does it mean to be like 25% full? What does it mean to be 50% full? What does it mean to be 75% full? And kind of like really challenge yourself to slow down and do those check-ins with yourself because it can be really, really instructive. And I think the thing is also that's really, really helpful if you're doing like a family style dinner where like you could go back a million times. So like serving yourself kind of like a sensible portion that looks really good to you and sitting with it and checking in with yourself. And then like you can always go back for seconds or however much you want. But like really, really checking in with yourself at those 25% increments, I think can be really, really helpful. The next is funny. And I'm like grinning because I kind of do try and avoid this. And it just said, we really want to know what you eat. And I have been avoiding this question for a long time because I do think it's triggering for people like online. And I think it's sometimes triggering for me to see like, this is what I eat in a day. So I don't know that I'll do like what I eat in a day because it kind of changes, but I will tell you the types of things that I eat. And again, I want to preface this with like, this is all specific to me. And I will also say that I'm very sensitive. I have a very sensitive stomach and I'm allergic to eggs and almonds, which is so unfortunate, especially the eggs part because I love them. It's not like an anaphylactic thing, but it does break me out and I'm vain. So like I don't eat them. I also feel really good grain-free. It's something that I've been doing for a while. The reality is if I really wanted something with grains in it, I would go for it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with grains. And I think that that's probably why I don't often talk about it, because I think for a lot of people, depending on your physiology, people do really, really well. It just doesn't feel super good for me. So I'm someone that wakes up in the morning super hungry. Like I need to eat breakfast. Like I would never like go out to breakfast because then that would just be like, well, I would, and that would just be my second breakfast, but I kind of need to eat. Right now I'm in a kick where I will do like a chicken sausage. I like the Applegate Farms. They do a sweet Italian. It's not actually sweet. So I'll do that in the air fryer. And then I'll also take a sweet potato. I like a Japanese sweet potato and I'll air fry that too, just with like olive oil and sea salt. Sometimes if I'm feeling fancy, I'll put like pumpkin pie spice on that and maybe even some stevia. And it's kind of like churro-ish. I'm very, very into it. But a lot of times it's just like oil and salt. And sometimes I'm still hungry from that. And I have this protein powder that I really like called New Fix. I've talked about it before. It's just like super clean and it's good. I like the chocolate one. Sometimes I'll like mix that with like hazelnut milk or cashew milk and I'll have that as like kind of like a shake with it. And for lunch, a lot of the times, it depends if I'm eating at home or on the go. A lot of times I'll do like a romaine spear type of things. I love doing a BLT with like romaine and having like avocado with that. So I have like the healthy fat, I have the protein, the tomatoes, and it's usually something like greens and protein, but with like a good amount of protein and a good amount of fat. I will also do like roasted spaghetti squash. I like using the high note. And then I'll sometimes put like the chicken sausage cut up in that as well. Sometimes I'll do like a big salad. It always has to have like protein. Like to me, and this is so specific to me, but I do not feel full just having like a plant-based meal. So it has to be some sort of like salmon or chicken or turkey. I don't often crave a ton of red meat, but sometimes I do. And I'm very generous with the amount of fat that I use. I also don't limit myself in terms of snacking. One of the things I've talked about recently that I'm obsessed with are these little olives. It's from Freestyle Snacking. I just throw them in my bag. And so a lot of times if I'm on the go, I'm like eating those in my car on the way to the next thing. And I do find myself a lot of the times cutting up like a bunch of Persian cucumbers and bell peppers and carrots and eating that with the tahini. I'm obsessed with this brand called Sunny. It's so, so good. It's currently only in LA, which I know is really annoying, but there are a bunch of brands actually, and it's also really easy to make. But if you are in LA, I do recommend Sunny. And I also do love dark chocolate. Like I'm usually never going to not have dark chocolate in a day. Right now, my favorite is Honey Mama's. It's just so good, the mint one, but I also like Who chocolate. So hopefully that was like interesting enough. And that's what you were looking for. Those are like the types of things I eat. I'm not there being like, ooh, 6 ounces of this, 5 ounces of this, but those are the things that I love to eat and eat pretty consistently throughout the whole week. And the last question is, I still find myself mindless eating. I know you've talked about this before, but can you remind me? Yeah, I will. And that's the thing. And that's the thing about my practice. And that's the thing about this podcast. I think themes keep on coming up. And I think it's a good reminder. It's a good reminder for myself too. The first thing that is top of mind that we talked about recently is that obviously, first and foremost, you want to make sure that this is an actual hunger. For instance, I don't want anyone going to sleep hungry. I don't want anyone, ignoring hunger cues. If you're really hungry, I want you to eat something. But if you do find yourself just like eating just to eat or emotional eating, here are the things that I really recommend. The first is really checking in with yourself about what's going on for you. And in the most non-judgmental way humanly possible. Because I think, again, and this is a theme that comes up a lot, people worry that if we're not like, oh, why are you doing this? You're the worst, that we'll keep on doing it. But I do think being really attuned to what your roadblocks are, what the things are that tend to trip you up, really do help you make a roadmap for how you can sidestep those things. Because I don't think that those things ever fully go away. It's just that we get better at dealing with them. The second thing is doing something that you really enjoy. We had a whole pleasure ep and we talked about self-pleasure and just pleasure in other ways that I think really does come into play, that if we're not getting enough pleasure in these other areas of our lives, I think we can end up looking to food and placing maybe too much emphasis on food to make us happy and filled up in those ways. Also, and we talk about this a lot, eating with your non-dominant hand can really, really help. If you want to grab something from the pantry even, take it out, put it on a plate, eat it with your non-dominant hand. It really forces you to pay attention to what you're eating while you're eating. And the last thing, and maybe the most important thing, is connecting back with your future self. It is so easy in those moments to be like, fuck it, I don't even care, it doesn't matter. And maybe it feels like that in the moment, especially if you're going through something tough, but connecting back to your tomorrow morning self, even, and being like, ugh, I don't want to feel that way. I want myself in the morning to like be set up for a day where you feel like you can start the day feeling really strong, feeling really connected, feeling really aligned. Again, I think overeating doesn't like ruin a day, and that is not the takeaway. But I think saying fuck it when you know that you do actually care and you do actually want to make thoughtful choices doesn't feel good. So really, really trying so hard to connect back to that future self, even if it is the next day self. These questions were so good, and I love them because they were just so relatable. And I love, love, love doing this. And send me your questions. Even if I don't have the question box up on Instagram, send me your questions. I log them for later. So if you have any, come find me at Shira_RD on Instagram. Tomorrow is a Shit I'm Loving episode. I will see you there. Thank you so much for listening to Good Instincts, hosted and written by me, Shira Barlow. You can find me on Instagram at Shira_RD. Good Instincts is a Dear Media daily. Today's episode is brought to us by Seed. And the thing about it is gut health and probiotics and the microbiome are absolutely buzzing in conversations and headlines and hashtags. And there are discoveries in the microbiome research that are absolutely transforming medicine and hygiene and diet. And honestly, with all of this amazing information, there's also a ton of misinformation, and that can feel really confusing and overwhelming. That's why I love Seed so much. I think it's so important to be able to trust the science and integrity of a company. And when it comes to really learning about and maintaining a really healthy microbiome, Seed is a company that I really trust. I have to tell you, I have been taking this for a while, and there was a moment at one point where I kind of lapsed and went to a different probiotic, and I actually did feel a difference. I'm not going to lie. For me, I like to take this as the very last thing before I go to sleep. It makes me feel really good before I go to sleep to know that I'm doing something to take really good care of myself and my biome. Seeds DS01 Daily Symbiotic is a plant-based prebiotic and probiotic with 24 strains that have been clinically or scientifically studied for its benefits. If you haven't taken probiotics before and haven't really felt a difference, it's likely because the capsule isn't designed to survive in your stomach acid with the bile salts and digestive enzymes. Seed is different. Get the real deal in a symbiotic, one that's backed by clinical trials and scientific data. Visit seed.com/instincts and use the code instincts to redeem 30% off your first month of Seed's DS01 Daily Symbiotic. That's seed.com/instincts and use the code instincts.